Alexander Grigoryevich, Vladimir Vladimirovich, the question of Ukraine, in particular, in connection with the expiration of the presidential powers of Vladimir Zelensky, how do you see the prospects for a possible resumption of peace talks with Ukraine? But the main question here is with whom to conduct these negotiations, even if there is such a request from the Ukrainian side. And, accordingly, the second part of the question is, do you see any real forces in Ukraine now, political circles or the military, who are really able to soberly assess the situation, compromise, and, most importantly, be able to negotiate? A question for me, to both presidents. I'll probably start. As for the negotiation process, I have talked about it many times, and I want to emphasize this again here in Minsk. Russia has never refused these negotiations. Moreover, we started these negotiations in Belarus at the time, then postponed it, and at the request of the Ukrainian side. We moved it to Turkey, to Istanbul, reached agreements, reached a draft agreement, and, moreover, a squeeze from these possible agreements. The head of the negotiating group from Ukraine initialed. In other words, in principle, the Ukrainian side was generally satisfied with this, and the Russian side was also satisfied. There were points that needed to be finalized, but in general, I repeat, if the signature is under this document from the Ukrainian side, it means that the Ukrainian side was satisfied with it. For obvious reasons, after the former British Prime Minister arrived in Kiev, the Ukrainian side chose these agreements, stopped implementing them, moreover, announced that the negotiations were being terminated. They said it publicly, and we stopped these negotiations. They stopped. Even more, they forbade themselves to conduct these negotiations further. We did not forbid anyone. We are for negotiations. After that, again at the instigation of their Western sponsors, the hosts, the goal was set to achieve a strategic defeat of Russia and victory over Russia on the battlefield. We see now that talks have resumed again, that it would be necessary to return to negotiations, but let them return. But they return, not based on what one side wants, but based on the agreements of a principled nature that were reached during difficult negotiations in Belarus and Turkey, and based on today's realities that have developed on Earth. We are ready for this, and with whom to negotiate. Of course, this is not an idle question, I agree with you. Of course, we are aware that the legitimacy of the current head of state has ended. I think that one of the goals of the conference that has been announced, the conference in Switzerland, is precisely to ensure that the Western community, the sponsors of the current Kiev regime, confirm the legitimacy of the current head of state or no longer acting. But these steps, they don't matter for legal documents. Of course, we will need to, if it comes to that, and I proceed from the fact that peace negotiations should be resumed, and not with the help of ultimatums, but with the help of common sense, and should be based on common sense. But if it comes to that, of course, we need to understand with whom it is necessary and possible to deal, in order to sign legally binding documents. And then we must be completely sure that we are dealing with legitimate authorities. This question should be answered in Ukraine itself. First of all, I think that from the position of the parliament, the constitutional court, or some other authorities, as far as I know. But we need to look into what is written in the Constitution of Ukraine, which authorities have the right to be extended. Under the Constitution of Ukraine, without elections, without electoral procedures, and who can't count on these rights. This can be done on the basis of a legal analysis. These are questions to the Ukrainian political and legal system. I absolutely agree with what Vladimir Vladimirovich has just said. As for the expiration of the powers of Vladimir Alexandrovich Zelensky, there is no legal purity here, and there cannot be, because there is a deep democracy there. You understand. Everything is smothered there. I am often reproached here, or we are often reproached that we are dictators. There is someone else sewn to this. This is democracy. Neither the Constitutional Court nor other courts can say anything. Therefore, the legal purity that Vladimir Vladimirovich spoke about is not there and cannot be in this situation. As for war and peace, the main issues, on which Mr. Putin also spoke, are of some importance. Anyway, neither the current president nor the future one, I think, will solve these big issues that face the state of Ukraine. The people of Ukraine. The presidents will not solve these issues. You know who will decide. A lot has already been decided overseas. What is not decided, they will decide later. The Russian president has just given evidence of this. When it was unknown who arrived, it was unclear who ordered, crossed out those agreements that were not easily given up, and were put on paper and initialed. Well, that's the result. Therefore, I have deeply analyzed in general, for myself, these problems with the powers of Vladimir Alexandrovich. And now I realize that it's all useless. As for the real force in Ukraine, well, you know, Ukraine was good before the special military operation of the society. And now there are more than these forces there. And everyone feels like heroes. And the forces that, in principle, we support the position, and which we do not support. Therefore, again, there is democracy there. There are enough people there today, both among the military and among civilians, who want to lead the country, and lead it in a new way to war and against war. But the situation is developing as it develops. I think this year will determine a lot. A lot. We'll wait and see. We are not in a hurry, especially Russia. Therefore, we have a single position. We do not hide it. We will work together.